You're coming here longer than any of us.
My guess is,
Okay, Mike.
my guess is I'm
It's Mike too.
All right, silence, please.
my guess is I'm the oldest person in the room. I'm 83. Yes. I have been coming to the college
Okay.
since the mid 60s. When I got Charlie's letter or email and all the stuff that's followed, it became apparent that there needs to be a committee. We need to let things go on that date in February. But I don't know who organized the meeting, next Saturday here. That's terrific. That's a great idea. And anybody who's interested should come. Now, parenthetically, I spoke to Charlie for 1 hour and 20 minutes a week ago. Now, here's my conclusion.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I didn't want him here. All right.
I used to speak at the thing right across the street.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the College of Complexes. My name is Tim. And tonight we're waiving tuition because I've seen a lot of people here tonight, and I just want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. So I know that I've got a nice Christmas bonus on my check, so I'll be able to cover whatever we got to cover tonight. So, tuition fees are waived tonight, so enjoy the speaker. Give a little extra to the waitress tonight if you can, so that we can at least make sure she's in there. Now, the College of Complexes consists of the following format. First, we have a brief announcements period. Second, we then have our speaker who will be Justin, talking about libertarians tonight. Then we will have a question and answer period. And at the end of the program, we'll have our infamous rebuttal period where each and everybody gets a certain amount of set of time to spot off about the speaker or other subjects. After this, after we're done, we have to shut down about 7:30 or so, maybe 7:45, because we have to be out of here by 8 o'clock when the restaurant closes. With that, Charlie, you want to start the announcements? I'll get everything ready for you on your end.
All right. Could you focus a little better, Tim, for those of us online? It's a little bit out of focus. No big deal.
Well, it's a new camera.
Oh,
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
all right. Bring up the screen.
I am. Give me a second, please.
Anyhow,
Wait.
welcome everyone to meeting number 3,849 of the College of Complexes, the playground for people who think. Although I'm not a capitalist, I will make an advertisement for our upcoming programs. Okay, bringing it up. And on January the 10th, as everyone should already be aware, we'll be opening up our 75th anniversary program. College began on January 6th, 1951, and this is the 75th anniversary program by my reckoning. Transitioning after that, by the way, the topic will be open microphone on the most memorable moments you've had, and the general discussion: has the College of Complexes improved or diminished the general level of conversation in the United States? On January the 17th, this is an interesting character, Dr. Daniel Hurley. He comes to us from the other college, but he's going to talk about medical marketing of supplements, truth in labeling, in which they use language that treats, prevents, or supports illnesses. He's an interesting character. It should be an interesting general discussion. He's got an interesting background. On January the 24th, then, we'll be closing out our political series of speakers with Demi Polachek, who's a candidate for the Illinois State Representative's office, contacted us and wanted to speak. Says she doesn't just talk about change, but wants to get to work and make it happen. Somebody like me will make things happen. On January the 31st, in the news right now, protests today, but our resident expert on Central and South American affairs, Stanfield Smith, I believe he traveled down south to a conference, but we're going to be talking about the U.S. intervention in war on Venezuela. So January the 31st. That brings us into February the 7th. We're going to feature an activist from out of town. He has marched across America for various issues, serves as a state representative. But we're going to talk to Ed Fallon, puts out emails and so forth on a variety of topics there. Okay, that's all for our schedule. Tim, you can take it away. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Are there any announcements for the good of the community? Any organizations that want to make a quick plug? You want to say something? Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Plug your organization real quick, what you might have coming up.
I run the geopolitical.
Come on up.
Thanks, Tim, for the opportunity. I run the geopolitical forum. We're gonna coming up. We have an event at Park Ridge near the airport with a candidate, Republican candidate for the primary. His name is Casey Klembeck. So he's gonna use his campaign headquarters to have a talk and meet people. So I'll be there. You can find my posting on the meetup platform under the geopolitical forum, or I can give you. You can contact me while we were here. I can give you individually the place and time. Basically, it's a Saturday. It's Sunday morning. It's coming Sunday morning. All right, thanks.
Sundays and tomorrow.
Next Sunday.
Any other announcements? Any other announcements?
No, next Sunday. Nice Sunday.
Okay, may I remind you to please silence your phones and or put them in silent mode. And Justin, if you're ready, let's get started and get you up here and let's welcome Justin.
Thanks. Hey, good to see you, Tim. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Thanks, Charlie and Tim, for all you've done throughout the years. Thank you for giving me many opportunities to come here and speak. I'm glad to be part of this institution. I wish Charlie and Tim all the best in the world, and I hope you guys are all well, and Happy New Year, guys. After the college adjourns, let's go to Portillo's down the street and hang out later because they're open late. They got beer, so let's do it. So a couple Libertarian Party things. You can vote for a Libertarian in the primary election, by the way. So if you desire, ask the person for a Libertarian ballot. And vote for Libertarian Party candidates in the primary. So please do that. LP convention is going to be in April. You can go to lpillinois.org. There's a big 2026 thing. You click on there to register. Our keynote speaker is Deidre McCloskey, who's the economist from University of Chicago and UIC, author of several books. Please check that out, lpillinois.org. That's April. So I'm here today to talk about Ludwig von Mises. He's an economist, he's a philosopher, and he's been a great influence on the modern libertarian movement, including Libertarian Party platform. I'm going to give you some biographical details here, and they come from Brian Doherty's book, Radicals for Capitalism, which is highly recommended. And that's a history of the libertarian movement. And in this book, he names the top 5 in his introduction, and they are Ludwig von Mises, Friedrich Hayek, Ayn Rand, Milton Friedman, and Murray Rothbard. So Brian Doherty is a journalist with Reason Magazine. He wrote this pretty dense history of the movement. and he is among one of the 5 that he thinks are the most foundational libertarians. Ludwig Heinrich Edler von Mises was born 1881 in Lemberg, which was in the Galicia region of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is now modern-day Ukraine. And forgive me for not putting the modern-day city's name there. Thank you. But one full at a time, please, if you don't mind. He was part of a very politically well-connected family. His father, Arthur von Mises, was an engineer with the Austrian Ministry of Railroads. His great-grandfather, Meyer Mises, fought for the Jewish equality in Galicia during the 1848 revolutions, and that's where he gets his sort of the family prominence comes along. All 3 Jewish members of the Austrian parliament who were elected from Galicia in 1873 were related to Mises. His family moved to Vienna when he was young, and he attended the University of Vienna, graduating in 1906 with a doctorate in law. So he was a lawyer first, I guess. He was interested in economics, and what piqued his interest in economics was Karl Menger's Principles of Economics. And Karl Menger is the founder of, considered the founder of, or one of the founders of Austrian economics. And his ideas were marginal utility, subjective theory of value. So Marxists beware. He began to embrace liberalism when he began to attend the lectures of Eugen von Bonwark. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who was another Austrian quasi-noble, or no, noble. They got von in their name. I really don't know how, whatever that means. But his big idea is time preference, and he was also a big critique of Marxist ideas. Mises worked for the empire's Internal Revenue Service before clerking in the courts, and he joined a Viennese law firm. He began his teaching career in 1908 at the Viennese Commercial College for Women, post he kept till 1912. 1909, he attained a position within the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, which was a government entity. It wasn't like today's, what you think here in America of a Chamber of Commerce of being like a private organization. It was more like an advisory sort of institution to the Austrian government, and he held that position till 1938. And then 1913 he began teaching at the University of Vienna. 1912 he wrote a book, The Theory of Money and Credit, and this is where he introduces the idea of the Austrian business cycle. He then served in World War I. Artillery captain on the front for 3 years. Then he contracted malaria, and he worked in the economics department of the War Department. In 1922, his publication of Socialism was released, and he critiques socialism negatively to liberalism in this work. And it's in this work that he introduced the socialist problem of price calculation, which I'll save that for another time. In 1927, he writes Liberalism, which we'll discuss today. In 1933, The Epistemological Problems of Economics. This is a work where he introduces the concept of praxeology, the study of human action. And he would elaborate on this in what is considered his magnum opus, Human Action, and that came out in 1940. 1934, Mises moves to Geneva in Switzerland to lecture at the Graduate Institute of International Studies. 1938, he marries widowed ex-actress Margit Sorini, I guess I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Geneva, and Mises had effectively settled there. Margit managed to leave Vienna with her children following the annexation of Austria by Nazi Germany, and the Mises family left Europe in 1940 and arrived in the United States. He's a founder of the Mount Pereland Society, one of the founders. He was involved in the FEE, and he was a visiting professor at New York University until 1963. His most famous colleagues and proteges include Friedrich Hayek, who won the Nobel Prize in economics. Hayek also wrote The Constitution of Liberty and Road to Serfdom. And another one of his proteges was Henry Hazlitt, who wrote Economics in One Lesson, which is an excellent read. He died in 1973 at the age of 92. He's buried in the Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale, New York, alongside Malcolm X, Preston Sturgis, Ossie Davis, and Ed Sullivan, among others. And so this brings us to liberalism. The title in German is Liberalismus, I guess I'm pronouncing that correctly. It was originally translated into English under the title The Free and Prosperous Commonwealth in 1962. It was translated by Ralph Raico. Ralph Raico got his PhD from the University of Chicago, where Hayek was reportedly one of his advisors. And Raico was associated with the Chicago Libertarian Association, which was an LP affiliate at that time in the mid-70s. So kind of a precursor to Libertarian Party of Chicago today. Raico wrote Gay Rights, A Libertarian Approach, 1975, which is a very excellent read, and it came out just a few years after Stonewall. So I highly recommend that as well. So let's look at liberalism. Mises says this in the introduction. Liberalism is not a complete doctrine or fixed dogma. On the contrary, is the application of the teachings of science to the social life of man. He also says, liberalism is distinguished from socialism, which likewise professes to strive for the good of all, not by the goal at which it aims, but by the means that it chooses to attain that goal. A society in which liberal principles are put into effect is usually called a capitalist society, and the condition of that society, capitalism. Since the economic policy of liberalism has everywhere been only more or less closely approximated in practice, conditions as they are in the world today provide us with a perfect idea of the meaning and possible accomplishments of capitalism in full flower. Nevertheless, one is, although justified in calling our age the age of capitalism, because all that has created the wealth of our time can be traced back to capitalist institutions. So he was already, he predicts tonight's rebutters, and so he continues. To be sure, in the customary rhetoric of these demagogues, these facts are represented quite differently. To listen to them, one would think that all progress in the techniques of production redounds to the exclusive benefit of the favored few, while the masses sink even more deeply into misery. However, it requires only a moment's reflection to realize that the fruits of all technological and industrial innovations make for an improvement of the satisfaction of the wants of the great masses. So he's dismissing socialism here on pragmatic grounds. He's kind of utilitarian. He thinks that capitalism is very useful and maximizes freedom. In the introduction, he continues, liberalism is not a policy in the interest of any particular group, but a policy in the interest of all mankind. It is therefore incorrect to assert that the entrepreneurs and capitalists have any interest in supporting liberalism. Their interest in championing the liberal program is exactly the same as that as anyone else. And he's got several chapters. Those few passages I just read were from the introduction. But the first chapter is called The Foundations of Liberal Policy. And I'm going to probably focus more on this chapter, but you can kind of deduce a lot of what he believes based on some of the stuff he says here. So he begins chapter 1 by saying, human society is an association of persons for cooperative action, as against the isolated action of individuals. Cooperative action on the basis of the principle of the division of labor has the advantage of greater productivity. If a number of men work in cooperation in accordance with the principle of division of labor, they will produce, other things being equal, not only as much as the sum of what they would have produced by working as self-sufficient individuals, but considerably more. All human civilization is founded on this fact. It is by virtue of the division of labor that man is distinguished from the animals. Now, he continues, he goes, now we wish to consider two different systems of cooperation. I'm going to paraphrase some of this. He basically says you have one which is socialism or communism, and then you have one that is liberalism. And he says the liberals maintain that the only workable system of human cooperation in society based on the division of labor is private ownership of the means of production. They contend that socialism as a completely comprehensive system encompassing all the means of production is unworkable, and the application of the socialist principle to a start of the means of the production, though not, of course, impossible, leads to a reduction of the productivity of labor, creating fewer wealth and having diminishing wealth. Mises condenses liberalism into one word, which is property, that is private ownership of the means of production. All other demands of liberalism result from this fundamental demand. Let's see here. There's a lot of stuff that he says that's really awesome, and it's can't have to narrow it down here. Some juicy stuff here. Mises basically goes down the entire liberal platform. So capitalism, private property is prime. Freedom is also paramount. And by freedom, he means lack of slavery in this instance. The liberal critique of the argument in favor of war is fundamentally different from all that humanitarians. It starts from the premise that not war but peace is the father of all things. What alone enables mankind to advance and distinguishes man from the animals is social cooperation. So he kind of peace, private property, cooperation. These are all you need these things for a prosperous society. He's also in support of equality, but not. He's talking about legal equality before the law. He certainly recognizes, he thinks that actually that people shouldn't say we're all created equal, because it's not true, because people have different talents and whatever. So, but he does think that everybody should be equal. Equality is certainly great for liberals to advocate, and try to by that way you can remove class privileges as best as we can. He defined he's kind of utilitarian, and here's his sort of ethical defense of some of this. In seeking to demonstrate the social function and necessity of private ownership of the means of production and of the Committeeperson inequality in the distribution of income and wealth, we are at the same time providing proof of the moral justification for private property and for the capitalist order based upon it. So he's very utilitarian. Look at what the fruits of what the system does. He is not an anarchist. He certainly believes that governments and the state have a function. We call the social apparatus of compulsion and coercion that induces people to abide by the rules of society the state, and the rules according to which the state proceeds law, and the organs charged with the responsibility of administering the apparatus of compulsion, government. Liberalism is not anarchism, nor is it anything whatsoever to do with anarchism. The liberal understands quite clearly that without retort to compulsion, the existence of society would be endangered, and that behind the rules of conduct whose observance is necessary to assure peaceful human cooperation must stand the threat of force if the whole edifice of society is not to be continual, blah, 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 blah. So he's very clear that liberalism requires government, requires protection of rights and protection of private property. He's also pro-democracy. He is a lowercase d Democrat. Democracy is that form of political constitution which makes possible the adaptation of the government to the wishes of the governed without violent struggles. By means of elections and parliamentary arrangements, the change of government is executed smoothly without friction, violence, or bloodshed. He wrote this before World War I, or I should say the interwar period, so before World War II. So he's very optimistic in this period of his life. He's a little less optimistic after World War II. So one thing libertarians have been, right about since they're found the LP is legalization or decriminalization of drugs. And here's something that Mises said that I found very interesting. And what's also interesting is Ronald Reagan also claimed to be a fan of Mises. Here's what he said. It is an established fact that alcoholism, cocainism, and morphinism are deadly enemies of life, of health, and the capacity for work for enjoyment. And a utilitarian must therefore consider them vices. Even if this end could be attained, he's talking about the suppression of all drugs, it is not, therefore, basically he says that going after vices, cocaine, the war on, what we would call the war on drugs, that would cause more harm than good. He doesn't mention anything, but he just kind of predicts it. And he says it would be a Pandora's box to other dangers. Things would be more dangerous than alcoholism and narcotic addiction. What else here? Certainly, he believes that government exists to punish criminals and antisocial behaviors. It should not be vindictive punishment or retaliatory. And it shouldn't be sadistic. It should be a very sort of just, I guess what in America we would call not, nothing cruel or unusual. Mises was very skeptical of intervention in the economy, so he was opposed to things like minimum wage laws. He think that they would just make unemployment worse. He also thought that you have too much intervention, you're then becoming, you then infringe on private property rights. So he doesn't really argue in favor, it seems, of things like I said, minimum wage, nor does he argue in favor of things like unemployment insurance or whatever. So to him, it would seem liberalism does not mean like a generous welfare state. He just thinks that sort of stuff would make problems worse. Problems they're there to fix just makes them worse. He also believed that monopolies mostly exist because either they control a particular resource or the government gives them the privilege to do so. He believed in peace. After being World War I, he thought peace and social cooperation were paramount. If the peace is not to be disturbed, all incentive for aggression must be eliminated. A world order must be established in which nations and national groups are so satisfied with living conditions that they will not be impelled to resort to desperate expedient of war. The liberal does not expect to abolish war by preaching and moralizing. He seeks to create the social conditions that will eliminate war. And some of those things will be free trade. And Mises argues against the protective tariff. And he says it's so clear, so obvious, so indisputable that its opponents were unable to advance any arguments against it that could not be immediately refuted as completely mistaken and absurd. So Mises just totally, he doesn't really give them, he doesn't elaborate, he doesn't really consider them much. He just, tariffs are idiotic to him. Here's one thing I like here's one of my favorite sort of passages in this book. And he's discussing the League of Nations when he says this. Just as in the eyes of the liberal, the state is not the highest ideal, so it is also not the best apparatus of compulsion. The metaphysical theory of the state declares that each individual is sovereign, and that each individual state, is sovereign, that it represents the last and highest court of appeals. But for the liberal, the world does not end at the borders of the state. In his eyes, whatever significant national boundaries have is only incidental and subordinate. And then he goes on to say, the liberal therefore demands that the political organization of society be extended until it reaches its culmination in a world state that unites all nations on an equal basis. For this reason, he sees the law of each nation as subordinate to international law. And this is why he demands supranational tribunals and administrative authorities to assure peace among nations in the same way that judicial and executive organs of each country are charged with the maintenance of peace within its own territories. He is arguing for a one world government, it sounds like here, right? Very interesting. Here's what he says about, and he talks a lot about political parties and the democratic process, but here's something I think that libertarians can appreciate specifically. It is easily seen that liberalism cannot be put into the same class with the parties of special interest without denying its very nature. It is something radically different from them all. They are out for battle and extol violence. Liberalism, on the contrary, desires peace and the ascendancy of ideas. It is this reason that all parties, however badly disunited they may be otherwise, form a united front against liberalism. The enemies of liberalism have branded it as a party of the special interest of the capitalist. This is characteristic of their mentality. They simply cannot understand a political ideology as anything but the advocacy of certain privileges opposed to the general welfare. He's predicting a Libertarian Party accusations of being Koch brothers shills 80 years before the fact. So very interesting there. So the Libertarian Party platform is reflected a lot in this. I don't agree with Mises on everything. Mises did believe liberalism was flexible and it evolved, and part of the reason why it evolves is people can use their reason and kind of figure out kind of how to proceed, I suppose. But it's very interesting to hear Mises condemning, making vices illegal. It's very interesting to hear him talk about tariffs in a negative sense. And, he had just seen World War I. He was anticipating, he witnessed the rise of the Nazis and, he got out. So he was kind of writing this in that sort of context. He was sort of haunted by his experiences in the war, and he just wanted to put a statement out there to capitulate the tenets of liberalism. And a lot of that is reflected in the Libertarian Party platform, as mentioned, the vices, free trade, government being specific to a few things. So he does have a very great influence within the libertarian movement. However, there are several individuals and organizations that have soiled the name of Ludwig von Mises in the past few decades. One institution is called the Ludwig von Mises Institute, and this was founded in 1982 by Lou Rockwell, who was a staffer of Ron Paul. And the Ludwig von Mises Institute also had a lot of heavy involvement from Murray Rothbard, who was another he was one of the a disciple of Mises, but he took things to an anarchist degree. As you just heard, Mises was not an anarchist. He wasn't an anarchist even when he wrote Human Action toward the end of the 40s. So that's where Rothbard is with his politics. And so the Ludwig von Mises Institute became known for advocacy of anarcho-capitalism. I personally am not an anarcho-capitalist. I think anarchism is self-defeating. It's fun to think about in a philosophical sense. That's where Murray Rothbard is doing, but they're putting Mises's name on this stuff. The Ludwig von Mises Institute also became involved in what was called paleo-libertarianism, which is libertarianism but very socially conservative. And we believe in abolishing the state or minimizing the state, but we need strong churches, and we need to emphasize families, and the counterculture is not something that we should consider, that sort of thing. And Ron Paul is part of this too. And they also have some neo-Confederate tendencies, unfortunately. And they went from, Mises, he's talking about liberalism. He calls himself a cosmopolitan. I didn't quote it, but he does call himself a cosmopolitan. But you have an organization in his name having justifications for why the Confederacy was a noble lost cause, and this, that, and the other. So I think that it's shameful that they've taken the liberal and cosmopolitan Mises and soiled his name with this garbage. Several folks associated with the von Mises Institute were involved in writing Ron Paul's newsletters. Google that. I don't want to go too much into it, but a lot of nasty stuff went out under Ron Paul's name in the late 80s and early 90s, people associated with the Mises Institute. Murray Rothbard wrote a piece called Right-Wing Populism. And in this, he sort of supports libertarians, or in this case, paleo-libertarians, reaching out to Pat Buchanan types and David Duke types, trying to, let's reach out to these types of people. Maybe we can build coalitions, and we can have libertarians succeed through this method. And this is the same sort of mentality that the Ron Paul newsletters came out of. This was all very disgusting, illiberal sort of stuff. Mises Institute also has this associate named Hans Hermann Hoppe, and his sort of notable ideas are that he claims to be an anarcho-capitalist, but he makes really good arguments, some people say, in favor of monarchism, which is something that liberalism rejected. He also is against democracy, thinking that democracy just leads to communism, and he's kind of got a real black and white. You're either, and Mises also had this sort of, you're either a capitalist or a socialist mentality as well. But Hans Hoppe takes it in a very illiberal way. His solution, or his sort of ideal situation, is anarcho-capitalism, where you have private property, communities that are voluntary. And he even says that in order to maintain a libertarian society or a libertarian social order, whatever the phrase he uses, is you have to expel homosexuals and communists physically, which I guess in a anarchist situation, who's to stop you from running your own sort of bigoted fiefdom, right? So that's another sort of illiberal idea associated with the Ludwig von Mises Institute. You also have Jeff Deist, I think I'm pronouncing, or Jeff Deist, whatever. And he was a recent leader in the Ludwig von Mises Institute. And he said in a speech, the speech was called For a New Libertarian, he says, in other words, blood and soil and God and nation still matter to people. Libertarians ignore this at the risk of irrelevance. And that might sound innocuous if you're unaware of what the phrase blood and soil means. And just weeks after, immediately, this speech was condemned because of this apparent dog whistle. And several weeks later, one of the phrases chanted in Charlottesville was blood and soil. Now, when this happened, because even there were libertarian critics of this blood and soil language, libertarians immediately started condemning the libertarians who went to Charlottesville, and a lot of them signed an open letter that condemned fascism and all this other stuff. And several folks associated with the Ludwig von Mises Institute refused to sign it. They thought it was, I guess, virtue signaling or something like that. And then that kind of caused a factional sort of thing within the Libertarian Party that led to the foundation of what's called the Mises Caucus. And that was in 2017, was when they were founded. Like I said, weeks, days, hours after Charlottesville. And they were immediately controversial because they claimed to be, they claimed to reject the sort of pragmatic milquetoast sort of, the Gary Johnson and Bill Wells. They wanted a more radical, but what they ended up doing was sort of initiating the outline in right-wing populism that Murray Rothbard had articulated a couple decades prior. And Ludwig von Mises Institute, like I said, neo-Confederates, they came under the radar of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And likewise, the Mises Caucus did as well, because they claim to be just, we're just radical. We're going back, we want to reject this pragmatic stuff. But they were just really sort of engaging in really gross sort of trolling and sharing, ideas that are contrary to the name that their caucus is founded for. In 2022, Justin Amash came to Libertarian National Convention, and he gave a speech, and he paraphrased a lot of passages from what you just heard me quote to you guys today. And the word that he changed the word liberal to libertarian, and even Mises will say the definition of the words liberal has changed over time. But he changed the word liberal, libertarian, read these quotes by Mises, and got booed. He got, by the first Libertarian Congressperson, U.S. Congressperson, booed. They booed him because he was reading. It was revealed that they were reading Mises quotes. And later on at that convention, the Mises Caucus took control of the LNC, despite booing quotes from the guy who their caucus is named after. And immediately, the National Party started having this gross, offensive, pandering, bigoted messaging. There was loss of fundraising, loss of ballot access. You couldn't vote for our last Libertarian Party candidate in 2024. In part because we in a state like Illinois that's got such cumbersome ballot access restrictions, we need help from the National Party. And if the funding's not there, because they're alienating donors, then we can't get the help we need to put Chase Oliver on the ballot. In 2024 at our LP convention, right? It's an LP convention. Party leadership invited Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, to basically have their own rallies at our convention. I was in the room. It was great to extend my middle finger up to the man himself. But this is not how you run a political party. The party also entered into a joint fundraiser with the RFK campaign, encouraging, and as you know, Kennedy left the race and endorsed Trump. There was no reason for us to be in this joint fundraiser or to even have, the national party basically endorsing Trump over the nominee. So about a year ago, 4 national party members formed a committee to investigate misconduct by the chair. The chair was Angela McArdle. She's the one who invited or had influence or whatever to bring Trump. So what they wanted to do was investigate her. And when they found out that they were going to investigate her, she resigned. She resigned, but said she was doing it because she was likely going to get a job in the new administration, which never happened. This committee had a report, and the report found gross judiciary violations on the former chair, Angela McArdle's part. They received close to $50,000 through a shell pack called Freedom Calls. By the way, the National Party Convention is called Freedom Calls. Us libertarians have a good sense of humor, I must say. They did this without board approval. And then they also received, looks like $32,000 from the Kennedy Fund without disclosing it. And they used party resources to promote a rally, which didn't really have anything to do with the party, in my opinion. And then this report concluded that McArdle is unfit to serve on the Libertarian National Committee as a affiliate leader or as a candidate representing the Libertarian Party. I agree. So I just want to say shame on all these people who have soiled the Mises name, who have taken positions that are contrary to the ones that I gave you guys today. And I'm sorry I have a little bit of I have some anger about this, but at least it wasn't Mises who was doing this stuff. It was people in his name, and I guess could be thankful for that, because what Mises wrote, I guess, matters most. And I will take Mises's word over theirs. And I wish that the Mises Institute and the Mises Caucus could have done service to the man by being faithful to his ideas. And I will close with that. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take questions now. Who's got questions? Please raise your hand.
Is there anybody here who wants to be a moderator?
Yeah, let somebody,
Somebody want to moderate? Chris, you want to moderate? All right.
okay, yeah,
If you want to take prerogative as the moderator to ask the question first.
that's fine.
After everybody gets done.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's hear what your question is.
Okay, I appreciate your overview of Mises also reflecting on the current situation, more like contemporary situation. My question, I also especially appreciate the way you describe Mises in a very contextual way, meaning the time and the place he was around. So based on that, you also mentioned you don't necessarily agree with Mises on everything. So do you think your disagreement with Mises is because you're in a different context, meaning different time or place, or it's something fundamental? In other words, if Mises lived through this day, would you and him agree on
I
certain
think you would
things?
probably be very disappointed with a lot of what our government does. Where I would disagree with him on, like, I mean, I haven't read everything Mises wrote. So if Mises kind of elaborates on like what the flexibility of like local governments, which I didn't read, I didn't find any of that sort of stuff in this book. But that's sort of be where my disagreements would be with him. I live in a city that has a lot of stuff. I chose to live here, so in a way, I feel like I am part of one of those voluntary communities that the successors of Mises talk about. But I think he would probably be very offended at what we're doing right now in Venezuela. I think he'd be very offended at the general size and scope of U.S. government does. He'd be mad, I think, at the tariffs that are going on. I think that he's a little inconsistent. Like he says a lot of these sort of, and I didn't quote. And by the way, read this for yourself. It's much better. But he says, I said stuff. I read stuff to you. I could read something else they would count within the same text. So he says things about how we need the state and civilization requires protection of property and human cooperation. But I forget where I was going with that. But I think he would think a lot of what we have going on is socialism. He would probably call the United States a socialist government at this point in time, I would say.
Would you?
Depends on how you define socialism and the context. I have an answer for each one of those. I would, if we were to define socialism by the planks in Chapter 2 of the Manifesto, how many do we have we instituted? Yes, we're a communist country in that, and then in that case, if we're defining socialism as when government does stuff, okay, yes, I guess we are. Roads and fire department, fine. Or the workers owning the means of production. No, I don't think that. I think you can do that privately through buying stock. I know that's not the ideal way socialists want it, but I think there are also non-coercive expressions of socialism that are very compatible with what Mises and Libertarian Party want.
Okay.
Does Mises address utilities, the natural monopolies? Like
he does. I skipped over that. Let me just read what I was going to copy, or what I copied to read, but I didn't. It is not only a gross exaggeration and misunderstanding of the facts to speak, as one commonly does today, of the formation of monopolies as having eliminated an essential prerequisite for the realization of the liberal idea of a capitalist society. Twist and turn the monopoly problem as one may, one always comes back to the fact that monopoly prices are possible only when there is control over natural resources of a particular kind, or where legislative enactments and their administration create the necessary conditions for the formation of monopolies. I felt that was probably the most succinct thing that he said. Does that answer your question?
he didn't think that we should all have our own private highways, our own private electrical grid, our own.
He probably actually would be for that if you could do it, but
water.
yeah, I will come back to you on that. Admittedly, I skipped over a lot of this. I didn't reread everything. So if I missed something, I apologize. But he does talk about monopolies for quite a bit. I felt that was the most succinct, sort of thing you could say about it. You may have to consult the text to get a better answer.
Okay, Charlie, you're online. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, Charlie, put your camera on. See ya.
Okay, thank you, Justin. you said that Ludwig von Mises is opposed to unemployment compensation. But every day of the week, I read about factories and restaurants and retail stores closing. How are the employees supposed to live if there's
How
no
are they supposed to
unemployment
live?
compensation?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I think he would consider that to, I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry, Charlie. I can't answer your question better. If you want me to answer it from his perspective, I don't have that immediately. If you want me to give you my answer, I personally think if you're going to have safety nets, they should be sort of bottom up at a decentral level, whether the state or the municipal folks doing it.
I mean, that's starve. That's hardship. You've got to minimize that hardship some way.
Who else has got a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking, got kind of a few questions, but one is, my stepfather was an objectivist, right? Ayn Rand, libertarian, Milton Friedman, and so I kind of argued with him my whole life. And what do you think? I think the problem is a subjectivism, that we need to be people. Like, if I'm going to vote for you, I need to know who you are and what you stand.
Give me a quick question.
And so the question is, I guess, why is the libertarians and the Greens and politics in general become such a dividing? And I think it's brought some road of serfdom.
You almost had a question there. I thought you were going to ask it. Are we moving towards fascism?
Yeah, I think we are.
I think we kind of are too, because as you know, the Greens and Libertarians need a lot of resources to get on the ballot here in Illinois.
But it's not about money necessarily, though, right? What if we had no money involved in politics? If we had citizens.
Well, nothing is for free, so you're going to have some money, I suppose.
But yeah, more reform.
The courts have interpreted the First Amendment to say that you can spend money on ads for elections and
corporations are people.
Well, corporations are groups of people actually.
And so they should have free speech and be able to spend as much as they want.
And do you have freedom of speech?
Apparently, but I don't have
theoretically or ideally, should there be freedom of speech?
Yeah.
What about him? Should he have freedom of speech too? Ideally, can a group of people together have freedom of speech? Then you've made the argument for corporations having free speech.
Look at the outcome. I mean, we've got fascism. Corporations take over government, and you don't have liberty.
All right, Adam.
I know I got here a couple minutes late. Quick question: did he ever have any? Did Mises? I know he was born in what is today Ukraine. Correct? Yeah. Did he ever have any comments on where he had grown up when he was talking about having a more open international system and ultimately looking towards a more international kind of government? Did he ever talk about Eastern Europe, the lost realms of the Austro-Hungarian Empire? And then second part, was he all theoretical about this? Because I know it could often be kind of theoretical models, or does he get into the nitty-gritty talking about the League of Nations of his time? So Ukraine, and then the post-Austro-Hungarian Empire and the League. Thank you.
So if he's talked about Ukraine, I didn't read about it. At least he doesn't mention Ukraine in an autobiographical sense in this work. As I mentioned, I got his biographical data from Brian Doherty. But he did write memoirs. I think even before he wrote Liberalism, he wrote his memoirs or wrote notes. Because by this time he had, I guess, he was in Switzerland, I suppose, at this time. If I'm not mistaken, if I got the timeline right. So at least in this work, he doesn't mention it. He has written memoirs. Maybe he elaborates in there. You said then what was the second portion?
Specifically, like the area where he was born that would probably passed at that time, back and forth between either the Soviets or Secondly, the fate of what had formerly been Habsburg lands, since he'd grown up in the Habsburg Empire. And And then third, if he ever talked really specifically about like the League of Nations of the late 20s.
Yeah, so he critiqued the League of Nations. So that when I talked about the one world government, that was taken from his discussion on the League of Nations. He actually critiqued the League of Nations because they didn't treat all nations on an equal basis. So he does a very good job in his advocacy of playing devil's advocate and sort of offering what the opposition might say. And because of that, you could also maybe take some of the stuff what he says out of context, because he does say he does often speak in the voice of somebody opposing his ideas. So you could probably take out something out of context, but what was the province he grew up in was Galicia, which is, I think now I don't think that goes by that anymore. The city is a new name. Russell mentioned it.
Yeah, it also stretches to the west to Krakow. There was east and west. And east was Lviv, and the west got to Krakow, and then it became the west. Poland controlled.
Yeah,
that.
Poland had yes. What, do you have a question though, since you're talking?
Yes, was there any, when it came to monopolies, someone from his era be looking at the Rockefellers, the Carnegies? What's his view on them?
Actually, he got to the United States with the help of the Rockefeller Foundation. They were helping bring Austrian and German expats into the United States.
One boy at a time. Foundations like a Ford in that they have gone off the rails from the founder.
Probably,
like
yeah.
Foundation doesn't do anything what Henry would have done.
I think they probably do things better than Henry done, considering Henry Ford was a raging anti-Semite and whatever.
Well, he
was kind of like, no.
He also did want to improve his car, and he.
Sorry, do you have another question?
Every year or every.
We're talking. We're not asking questions.
Okay, Marilyn, go ahead. You're online. Go ahead, Marilyn.
What did he view as the cause of growing wealth inequality?
What did he say was the cause of wealth inequality?
Yes, and the way it continues to grow.
He actually thought wealth inequality was completely moral, and something that is would be a default condition of capitalism.
Like a 1% get everything.
No, it wasn't that. But not because he said, not everybody has equal intelligence or abilities, this, that, and the other. So certainly not everybody's already equal. So therefore, you're going to have, unless you force equal outcomes, which is going to take a lot of government coercion. Capitalism thrives on inequality because people can sell things for less or more. You can go in different trades based on what skills you can offer. Somebody has more, you want that, or you want to make something that's better than that. So he had a very positive view of wealth inequality.
Does that include extreme wealth inequality?
I'm not sure. I think he thought that you could just, if you let businesses set wages, then you would lower unemployment and therefore employ more people and therefore reduce wealth inequality. That was his method.
Yeah, actually, can I ask one?
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
I know it's interesting you talk about that economics of inequality and how you can, make jobs and work harder. But what do you think about, my stepfather used to say, sociology proves nothing. Would that be a libertarian idea? That it seems to me it's like
I don't think so. I took some sociology class in college that I thought was very useful. A lot of prominent libertarians are sociologists, Charles Murray being one of them.
He's credible. What about his racial?
I've never read any of his stuff, so I really don't know. What I do know about him is he was next door neighbors with Karl Hess. Karl Hess was a radical, sort of like left anarchist, who was friends with like sort of the anarcho-capitalists that were Mises' disciples.
Do you think that it seems to me you can rationalize wealth inequality in some ways. They seem to rationalize without looking necessarily at the real problems of, can you see any contradictions, as our friend Sid used to say?
Yes, I think he's got a lot of contradictions, because he talks about state being being a big, the state can be very evil and can like be oppressive and this and that, but we need the state.
Yes, deal with invasion of Venezuela.
How many questions in a row do you have, ma'am?
I just thought that was really.
That was 10 in a row.
I don't know. I don't make that policy of invading Venezuela.
I don't think Rand.
Maybe you missed it, but I came out, or at least I said Mises would come out against it. Hopefully. Can you quote me something that contradicts that?
Any other questions in the room?
All right, we got another one from Charlie.
All right.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Let me get my screen up here. 1 second. Yes, Justin. Under Mises, is it okay for me? Let's say could I open up a sweatshop like they have in third world countries and employ children? Is that appropriate under Mises and the Libertarian Party platform?
Libertarian Party platform probably is not as flexible. Let me see what Mises has to say.
So I could open a sweatshop?
In another country.
Like here, right here.
I guess you can open up. He supported business. He supported general industry. So I guess if you wanted to open up by sweatshop, you mean like a clothing manufacturing firm.
So you call that a general? What is a general industry? A sweatshop?
What?
A general industry. I never heard that before.
Did I say general industry?
Yes, you did.
Like he supported industry in general? Like he was pro-industry, so he'd probably be pro opening a whatever firm, and he would probably be supporting the firm owner offering whatever wage they would, and he would probably prefer minimum interference in the firm owner and the employee negotiating their wage. He actually spoke of unions because he thought that unions employed a lot of force and that going on strikes could be sometimes unfair and could often lead to agreements that are not beneficial to the firm owner. So he had kind of a nuanced position on that sort of stuff.
All right.
Got a gentleman back here.
All right, Ernie, go ahead.
Which modern day economist has the most influence from Mises?
Modern day.
Yeah. Modern day, starting whenever you want to start.
I would say that the folks at Cato Institute generally sort of approximate this program.
You see, Milton Friedman, do you think?
Yes, but you said modern day. He's been dead for 20 some odd years now. So I didn't. But yes, Friedman would.
Late 20th century.
Friedman was a fan of Mises for sure. And so a lot of the big free market economists are big Mises fans.
What would you say about the philosophy of Johann Norberg the
Oh, yeah.
economist from Sweden. Can you give us a little bit of, is he pro-Mises or is he more, what you call a liberal type?
I mean, I have not heard him explicitly like, hey guys, one foot at a time, please. And if you guys want to take the conversation outside, that's okay. But can you please take it outside if you're going to do that? And Russell, too. Could you shut up, please?
Back to the question,
So Johan Norberg, I've never heard him affirmatively. Hey, Ellen, what the H?
We want to try to keep some people going.
Shut up, please. So I've never heard Johan Norberg, or if I have, I don't recall, and I haven't read his capitalism book. Maybe he praises Mises in there. I don't know, but I imagine I'm going to guess that Johan Norberg is a fan of Mises, and Norberg does call himself a liberal. So I imagine that he has a lot of sympathy for Mises and the Mises liberal program that we discussed today.
great question.
Okay,
Oh,
who's next?
So we got anybody online? I want to make certain they're not.
Nobody online now. Go ahead.
I've got a question, Justin, it's kind of been brought up, but on a very personal level, do you really believe that like there should be no government regulation of industry or labor practices? I mean, in other words, going back to the 1800s where you could, kids could work for 16 hours. I mean, you don't believe that should be allowable?
As I had mentioned earlier, I said that I disagreed with a lot of what Mises had to say on certain things. One of them being his sort of like, it's either capitalism or it's socialism type of mentality. So Hayek's student, or excuse me, Hayek was a student, a colleague, a protege of Mises, and was also considered a Austrian economist. And Hayek felt that the government should firmly do things to help out poor people, have some sort of social safety net of sorts. He thought that was compatible, that you could do that in a way that does not jeopardize private property and helps those who may have, hardship or whatever. I think I agree with that more than Mises's hard line, it's either socialism or it's capitalism mentality. Whatever. Roads and mass transit does not bother me at all. I think the CTA could be privatized. Maybe it could be better, this, that, and then. Maybe we can have competing agencies. But I'm not in principle sort of opposed to if we're going to be spending money on roads, what's wrong with also looking at rail and other means? I think Mises didn't advocate this sort of stuff, but perhaps vouchers is a method that we can utilize to institute some sort of education reform and have greater parental control. So I'm not opposed to. I'm more of a Hayek than a Mises guy in that regard. But Mises, like I said, he said liberalism was not flexible. It changes over time. So Hayek, being a student, used his reason, applied it, and expanded on liberal theory, and thought, hey, maybe the government can do things to help the impoverished or the infirm or whatever.
Okay, where would you rank Donald Trump and the present administration with the beliefs of Mises? How would you rank or not rank them?
They're almost completely opposite. Mises was anti-war, anti-tariff, he was pro-freedom of movement. I wish I had time to quote some of his pro, freedom of movement type stuff. he was a expat himself, so I'm sure he saw value in free migration of people, especially people who are escaping Nazi Germany or other authoritarian regimes. So I think that Trump and Mises would disagree on a whole hell of a lot.
Okay, I guess Charlie's got another one. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, let me open up here. Yeah, Justin, you seem to embrace social stratification. Do you really believe that with this aristocracy that they have rich people are rich because they have attributes that I am lacking?
Myself and Mises both agree that it is illiberal for, what do you say, aristocracy to exist. Liberals and myself are opposed to that sort of thing. He thought that, rich people could be rewarded for their risks and their that sort of stuff. I've never said that I was pro stratification. Maybe that might be a straw man on your part, or maybe. But I don't know what you mean by even if by stratification you mean by people being able to get wealthy, then I guess I am pro stratification, and I think getting wealthy is a good reward for being an effective entrepreneur, providing services and jobs to people.
Ellen, did you have another question?
Yeah. What
Go ahead,
in terms
Ellen.
of the spectrum, from fascism to communism, right? My sense is that Mises is more toward the fascism and has led to a kind of war on communism. How can we stop this war on communism, which is kind of underneath what Trump's taking?
How can we stop the war on communism?
Trump has attacked Venezuela with the idea that they're socialist or communist. Does he have the right to do that based on libertarian Mises philosophy?
No, I already said that.
You could say it, but Mises and von Hayek are known to be fascist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he was lying. Everything he said in there was a lie.
I've got the book too. The radicals. I mean, that's propaganda promoting these guys. They're not looking at them as good guys.
There is a line in the book where he's talking about Italy, and he talks about the fascists. As I mentioned, he says things that can be easily taken out of context. If you read, I'll just read what he has to say here, so there's no ambiguity. If that's okay, let me find it. Oh shit, where's it at? So let's say it's like this page. Well, I'm not going to find it, but he rejects socialism or fascism. You could read it.
Does he reject communism?
Yes. I said that, I think, several times already.
There is a kind of fascist war on communism. Either you're this side or that side.
Yeah, I'm not gonna deny that fascists were anti-socialists.
Yeah, he's
or anti-communist.
Yeah, right,
But Mises also critiques the third way, which, like, fascism is supposed to be. And as a member, a government employee of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, he did have to join certain political parties and stuff, which is unfortunate. But he argued against that sort of stuff. And if he was pro-fascist, why did he escape? I mean, he was a Jewish guy. He was gonna, if he stuck it
Rockefeller
around.
brought him here, right? Rockefeller was a fascist, basically, right? And
Bringing wartime
Rothschild, right?
refugees over. How many questions do you get?
What?
Come on.
We're moving on to time.
Here,
Come on.
you cannot control
Fucking
yourself.
question.
I'm your sponsor if you
Enough.
can't self-regulate.
All right, guys.
All right.
Enough. Settle down. Thank you, sir. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
Who else has a
I'm
question?
full of the goddamn time. I'll shut it up how I want.
This means not what he believed, but some of the people that claim to be his followers, I think they've gone off the rails from him. Would they have been more in line with Trump?
Oh yeah, a lot of people at the Ludwig von Mises Institute currently, and even people in the Mises caucus controlled LNC invited Trump to our convention, and they yes, they supported Trump over our candidate. Yes, these followers have supported policies that that contradict that and that are like Trumpist. Yes, it's unfortunate.
You see that a lot of these groups, they take over and then they throw out his teachings and put in their own.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I beg the question to you then. So, what was the name of the thing?
That's Russell.
Russell, I beg the question to you then. How do you correct that and restore the order into that such groups such as that?
I think it's pretty much impossible. They're always going to bastardize those organizations.
Well, there's ebbs and flows. I mean, and I don't mean to have it back and forth with you, but there's ebbs and flows. So if you get the people that want to restore that order back in there and they overwhelm the cancer, if you will, would you say that it could correct itself over time?
I have my doubts.
All right, is there,
We got one on the phone. Is that Jake on the line? All right, the person with the 773 area code, is that Jake?
Yeah,
Bryce?
hi. Yeah, my question is, thank you for your talk. Why would the right-wing libertarians support Trump over the Democrats?
why would they support Trump
Yeah.
over the Democrats?
Yeah.
I probably a sort of lip service to small government or lip service to ending the Fed or lip service to peace. Peace was, Trump was supposed to be the peace president, but he's been anything but. Here's another thing. Anti-war, there's nothing wrong with being anti-war, but I think a lot of like chuds sort of use anti-war as a cover. Pat Buchanan is anti-war, but Pat Buchanan also has a lot of like really horrible other ideas. So I think like, at least I'm anti-war. I don't support slaughtering, innocent people, Therefore, me being a chud is not as
Well,
horrible.
Trump is really not an anti-war candidate. He's an isolationist, in quotes. But look what he's doing in Venezuela. That's not isolationism, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, last question. How will we? Okay.
Well, Adam
All right,
and
that's fine. All right, go ahead, Adam.
Get Adam first, and then we'll.
Did he have any comments on the overseas empires of Europe at the time around the 1920s, or the Far East, or the new powers like Japan? Or was most of his focus on Europe and maybe North America?
To give you the most broad answer that I can recall, is he generally thought that when it came to colonialism, that the powers should remove themselves and let the people. He believed in self-determination. Thought that powers can remove themselves and that they can. He was an anti-imperialist and anti-colonialist in that regard. Anything specific? He does talk. He does speak about some of the talks about Russia at the time. He talks about certainly some German history that might be more obscure to Americans. I can't recall that right now, but is basically he like get the empires out of there, let the people that are there run their lives.
We're gonna close out.
All right.
Let's get Ernie.
And then we'll
Ernie, stand up, Ernie.
Huh?
Can you stand up?
Yeah,
You want me to stand up?
Yeah,
I
because-
have a question. I confess to being a progressive liberal, and even as such, I do like some of Trump's policies. I have to confess that. And I know libertarians like a lot of his policies. But how do those of you who are liberals and support his policies, how do you support that your candidate is such a jackass?
Which candidate are you referring to?
Donald Trump.
He's not my candidate.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's
Okay,
not the
how do you
Libertarian
feel about
Party
Donald-
candidate.
How do you feel about Donald?
Oh, he sucks. I bless his heart. He's ungodly. He's horrible. He's evil. He is by far the most repugnant president we've had in decades, in my lifetime. I feel I have nostalgia for George W. Bush because of Donald Trump. The Rob Reiner stuff was just so incredibly disgusting. And the I don't forgive my enemies at Charlie Kirk's funeral was so the most anti-Christian. I mean, that's literally that's the most anti-Christian sort of thing you could say at a Christian function. And he has not lost support from evangelicals that I can tell because of it. I think that Trump, I can't wait for him to get out of here. I can't wait for Trumpism to die. And I'm sure Murray Rothbard would be happy to see that right-wing populism, Trump probably took a few plays out of that, unfortunately.
Okay, this will be your last question.
Last question right here, Tim.
In terms of Mises, we've been starting to see around the world some elements of rebellion, like in Iran, like in some of the other countries of the Soviet Union. How would you stop a dictator, in the words of Mises?
Well, he believed that the state existed to protect nations as well. Peace. Unfortunately, Tim, I'm going to have to claim a little bit of ignorance to your particular scenario and what he would do in this situation. But he was a pacifist. He didn't think war was cool.
Then what about your stance, then, if I may ask?
How do I believe? Should we take out dictators? That sort of stuff. I think it's hard to. It's World War II. I think was a pretty justified military operation. I don't think Iraq is. And the U.S. has kind of like been really horrible on foreign policy, particularly since the Vietnam War. That I don't trust the U.S. to really do much. Even if, like, say, like I think Ukraine, for example, I think is you have an instance of a larger nation invading the sovereignty of a smaller nation. On paper, that sounds like a very morally cut and dry situation, but the U.S. is also U.S. Financially can't sustain, funding wars for eternity. Probably not. So if you're asking me personally, I guess it would be a case by case scenario, but skeptically, skepticism probably prevails.
Fair answer. What do you think about going to rebuttals?
Let's do it. I got
All right.
Are you good? Get up here for a rebuttal.
Yeah, I'm going to give everybody about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay.
All right, go ahead. Let's get these rebuttals started.
Yeah,
Anybody online, let me know.
I'm grateful for Justin and Mises to bring us together tonight. I see we have a great crowd in terms of the line. We go from the left to the right. I see in the mix, which brings me to the point I want to make, which is the communism could be considered the far left. the left. You can't get any more left than from each according to his ability to each according to his need. You can't get any more left than that, right? And on the right side, right, it can be right to Mises, which is and you can call it anarchist libertarianism, right? Which is you can even have your own court, private police, even private army for your own security. Not to mention the ownership of the firearms and that sort of thing, and everything in between. I see in today's crowd as well as online. So my point is, we can have each country, right, or each civilization, they go their own paths, historical path. Like for example, the United States, we're basically on the right side. Now, within the right side, right, free market capitalism, liberty, all that stuff. And within the right side, you have people who tend to be on the left. Well, I take the risk of naming some names, like Charlie will be a little bit on the left side. But to the communists, to the Chinese Communist Party, you guys are on the right side. Because you guys don't know what real communism is. And they know. So my point is, it's good. Every country gets to the point where they are based on their tradition, their historical path, based on accidents or something determinate. But within a country, it's probably hard to change. Kind of hard to change, short of like a major revolution. For the US to be on the left side, for China to the right, on the right side. So I think a better route is to stay where you are. You can have your internal struggle or dispute between the lines. You're a far right or a little moderate right, that sort of thing. The same thing with China. Because I take that position is because nothing is perfect, whether libertarianism or communism or socialism. None of them is perfect. It's based on your need, your taste, right? And also based on context, time and place. So you might as well stay where you are because you're there for a reason, unless you really want to risk a revolution. But between countries, between civilizations, between the United States and China, for example, while I can see the problems that the United States have, China doesn't. The problems China has, the United States doesn't, right? So you see what I'm getting at? You might, unless you want a major revolution or a little bit chaos, you might as well stay there, try to refine it, try to reform. And so within each society, within each country's society, you have your dispute. But within countries, the dispute is counterproductive. It's just waste of time at best. Risking war at worst. That Trump has, right? I'm not here to make a judgment whether Trump is good or bad. I read the national security strategy publicized in November. I also read the Chinese version publicized in May last year. And I see certainly China doesn't condemn US about their ideology. And Trump and the West, or the White House, national security document, national security strategy document, I don't see any one word condemning the China about their communism. They don't do that. Stop doing that. As far as I can see, this is the first time that I see it stop doing that. Actually, on the contrary, in the United States version, it says, we believe in our system. We believe in our system. But we'll work with other systems, other forms of governance, like Saudi Arabia, that sort of thing, certainly implying the communist countries or so-called communist countries. Actually, they're socialist countries. So I think that's a good thing. All the faults that Trump has, it's a good thing. We stop doing the ideological struggle between countries. You can do that struggle, dialogue, dispute, argument, debate within your country for the better of your country. But between civilizations, it's counterproductive. At best, it risks war at worst. Right, that's all I have to say.
Who's next? Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, what's your name, Eric?
Eric Mao.
Yeah, Eric, thank you. It helps me clarify my thinking and comment. Yeah, I'm Ellen Corley. I've come here for the last 10 years or so. I am running for Congress. I'm on the ballot to challenge Mike Quigley in the 5th District for the Democratic nomination for U.S. House of Representatives. So, and I think, you know, a lot of how I've gotten to this position is because I've been coming to this free speech forum and, you know, learn to talk for a few minutes afterwards and come to understand the importance of free speech and politics, you know, and it's in the sense of the word. My philosophy is really a philosophy of education. I think we should be debating as philosophers. I think each of us should know our philosophy as if we're in Congress or if we're in a jury of our peers and making decisions on policies. You know, should we have attacked Venezuela, a sovereign country, and kidnapped their president and wife with billions of dollars, I'm sure, of planes and boats? And I mean, it was gross. But I woke up to listening to Pete Hegseth and Trump. I mean, whoever, they're delusionally fascist, you know, and it's amazing that they're getting away with it. I mean, it's like Hitler had a good script, so, you know, he got away with it. And I think we're at that stage. I think we are the Fourth Reich, and they're getting away with it, keeping it invisible, controlling the media, controlling the AI. This is how Goebbels did it. This is how fascists did it. And we need the enemy. We have kept the enemy as China, Russia, Iran. After, you know, we did, people, I'm part of a truthactionproject.org. Every Tuesday night, please join us on Zoom at this truthaction.org, truthactionproject.org. This has grown out of the 9/11 truth movement and the Kennedy research movement. But the truth is, the Kennedy assassination was an inside job. The 9/11 was an inside job, and COVID was an inside job. These are CIA and SS, Gehlen, Mossad, military intelligence, fascist operations. And if we can't wake up to who we really are, you know, you could call it libertarian, you could call it green, you could call it Republican or Democrat, but there's a commonality. They're ultra-Zionist, ultra-fascist is what they are. And that is, I mean, they need to be upright about it. That behind it is Rockefeller, is Mises, is Van Hayek. I know because my stepfather was one of them, okay? And he didn't know it. You know, these are, you know, they don't let you know who, it's like the 33rd Mason, you know, at the top of this cult that is really running things. They don't let you know what the real agenda is. I mean, Trump or Carter or, you know, they're useful idiots as far as they're concerned. But this is the plan, Operation Gladio. Read up on it, okay? This was done by Dulles, by Kissinger, by Soros. The plan was a strategy of tension, a continuity, a strategy of tension, false flag terrorist attacks, always blamed on the other guy. Look at Steve Corbett's wonderful, the Corbett Report, false flag terrorism. That's all it is. We are going to bring down this World Trade Center and blame it on these Arabs. And they control all sides of it. They do it through the AI. They do it through propaganda, total propaganda all the time. That's what we've got here, you know, and it was a plan. It worked great in the Third Reich, and it's working even better in this empire and the invisible empire, New World Order. Read Jason Burmes's documentary. You know, it's hard to believe that, if I used to argue libertarian is good, if it's an anarchy, but it's not. It's capitalism. It's Ayn Rand. It's like, Howard Roark, the rest and brightest, it's the Elon Musk. It's the billionaire. It's the oligarchs. Let them have it all, and it's going to be good for everybody. I'm glad that China, they got smart with getting some rational capitalism. I studied China at Colgate when I was there. You had to study a culture other than your own and respect it. Where the problem is, you think we're getting along fine and leaving, not going to war. It's economic, dollar versus bricks. And I'm scared shitless that, the bonds, nobody wants these dollars. These $40 trillion in debt that America has, right? And we're a monster. They call it, with the Schiller Institute, the LaRouche Institute, economics, who they hit, we are like, okay, almost over. They're like a giant tick on a dog. That's what's running our country.
Okay, I'm going to go next, and then we got an online one from Charlie. Because I think I'm going to roast Charlie quite a bit.
Keep it to 4 minutes this time, right?
Oh, I will. I'll keep it to 4 minutes. It's going to be a good one.
We'll get you in the truck.
All right, we're going to go me next and Charlie.
And then.
All right.
All right, guys, one full at a time, please.
Truth does not ask. Truth does not ask for permission. We are told to be quiet. We are told to trust. We are told that power knows best. But history tells us a different story. And so did Ludwig von Mises. Mises stood in an age of governments when governments promised salvation. When planners came, they could redesign society. When elites said freedom was outdated and control was progress. And Mises said no, not with slogans, not with force, but with truth. He told the world something power hates to hear. You cannot plan what you do not know. You cannot command what you do not understand. And you cannot control human beings without destroying them. This isn't just economics. This was a moral line in the sand. Because every time the state says, give us more power, we know better. What the state is really saying is, your life belongs to us. And Mises exposed that lie. Not in offices, not in committees, not in unrelated experts insulated from consequences. Families know their needs. Workers know the truth. Communities know their limits. And when bureaucrats override that knowledge, they don't create justice. They create damage. When these systems fail, when inflation explodes, when shortages hit, when ordinary people suffer, the powerful never take responsibility. They blame you. They blame information. They blame not enough control. Mises saw this coming. That's why his books were burned. That's why he was driven into exile. That's why he was ignored by the powerful. Because truth is dangerous. And look around today. We are told sacrifice is patriotic, but it's never demanded of those in charge. We are told obedience is compassion, but dissent is treated like a threat. We are told that the system needs more power, more control, more silence from people that hurts. Mises warned us. When power replaces humility, when control replaces consent, when force replaces truth, freedom disappears. And let me be very clear. This is not left versus right. This is not party versus party. This is people versus unchecked power. This is about human beings, our free moral agents, or variables in someone else's spreadsheet.
Please.
Mises believed, and history proved him right, that societies built on coercion collapse, that economics fails, that economics built on lies fail, and that truth always outlasts propaganda. So today, we see this clearly. We do not need rulers who pretend to be gods. We do not need planners who never pay the price. We do not need systems that punish the truth tellers and protect the powerful. We need courage. We need accountability. We need freedom grounded in reality, because truth does not ask for permission. Freedom does not need excuses. And power that fears the people has already lost its legitimacy. Ludwig von Mises stood almost alone and he was right. Now the question is not whether he was right. The question is, will you stand with Ludwig von Mises and perhaps maybe even some of our other Christian people who are involved in power? Thank you.
And Jewish too, because Mises was Jewish.
We got Charlie coming up next.
Is that, or where does that
Charlie,
go
are you-
to?
That was from
Do you have a rebuttal
ChatGPT.
that you wanna
I
share?
do. You want me to do it now?
Got it in here. All right, Charlie's next, and then we'll go. All right, Charlie.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank Justin for a nice talk and an overview of Ludwig von Mises and the libertarian political philosophy. I will begin by asking a question. How many of you in the past week either received or gave a gift made in a sweatshop? If you think that's appropriate, then you think Mises is okay. If you think it's okay to give an article of clothing, let's say, for example, or perhaps you're even wearing one made in a sweatshop that somebody gave you, I guess you think Mises is okay. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. Now, Eric, I'm going to level on you. Exploitation should not be permitted anywhere, whether it's in another country or in a neighboring country or this country. It should not be allowed and you should not support exploitation. I don't, and I don't believe you do either. So don't tell me that the country's boundaries or some heritage allows it. What country has a heritage of exploitation, of bad conditions of employment? That doesn't need change. Come on. That's number one. All right. Number two, is one incontrovertible truth, and that is under Mises, the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer. Now, why anybody would embrace such a political philosophy eludes me altogether. In the United States, we are suffering the worst social stratification, with 1 to 10% controlling all the wealth and the remainder in a condition of near slavery, which means that he says, oh, I oppose slavery, but he allows the conditions of slavery to exist. Even under this libertarian philosophy, the old question was, is it appropriate under libertarian philosophy, political philosophy, free market, to sell yourself into slavery? I asked that question. Number three, free market capitalism does not work. How many of you can name a country? You pick up the papers every day of the week. Some company is laying off 59 thousands of employees. Hardly a company exists for more than a few years. It is said that a large factory that is opened up has life expectancy at most of about 20 years. And then what does it do to those communities of the people that work to those factories? Who can name a company that existed for 10 years or more? You can't hardly find one. Very few, even existed several decades. To maintain that this is an economic system that works, I lose me again altogether. Are you not looking at the facts? Are you this chaotic situation of unemployment? People lose their jobs through no fault of their own. You go someplace, you work very hard, and then they announce, due to marketing conditions, we are closing, or a retail store, or a restaurant. Kids, what kind of system is this? And I'm going to say, oh, that sounds pretty good to me. And the last thing is, I know that Mises is for democracy, but I know this for an absolute fact. If I get together with my coworkers and we put it to a democratic vote to have a union representing us for the conditions of employment, that the libertarians and me and the owner would be opposed it. And so we do not recognize your democratic action or to do anything democratic.
Thanks, Charlie.
Is that the case? Well, you can say goodbye. That you have no dignity to get together and form a collective as to operate or to recognize, advance your interests. I don't want to be totally negative, but I've got little bit I can find positive about this type of political philosophy. Thank you, Justin.
Charlie.
Please come again.
Thank you, Charlie. We are on limited time. We've got just a couple more rebuttals.
Okay, Ernie and then Joe.
It's not even 7 o'clock.
Am I after Joe?
I originally,
What's going on, Tim? Sir?
Ernie's next.
all right,
Joe Kopsik's online.
all right. Yeah, I did not intend to use my rebuttal time, and I will not to debate Charlie. I agree with him on a lot of things, but I disagree with him on others. Very simply, free market capitalism is the greatest engine for innovation and high standards of living that the world has ever known. I do not think it is a perfect system. I'm a liberal progressive. I believe in government intervention because of the fact that while this produces tremendous wealth and innovation, it does not do much in terms of equitable distribution. And we are still, as a nation, working on that. We're a little out of kilter. I hope we'll do better in the future. I would say that first of all, I want to thank Justin for a very good talk. I wish I knew more about Mises and a lot of other economists and their policies. In point of fact, I probably know more than most just because of my education, but I don't know nearly enough. And I think our country as a whole is ignorant of economics. And I think that we need to start teaching economics much earlier, perhaps as early as the second grade, on a level that kids can understand, so they understand the importance of economics, along with the importance of government. We start learning about our government very early, but we should start learning about economics as well. As far as one of the things that I agree with or disagree with, I agree with Mises on tariffs are bad. Everybody agrees except for Trump. And Trump is my belief is that he wants to just simply shift the tax base from upper income to lower income people, and therefore he is imposing a sales tax. That's what a tariff is. It is a sales tax. It is not a tax on the countries on which he imposes. It may hurt them a little bit because they may get a little less business, but it is not a tax on them. It is a tax on ultimately the American consumer. And when we realize that, and we realize therefore we have a regressive tax, moving the tax burden from the wealthy to lower income. I've said this many times before. I think the people in this room probably understand it, but an awful lot of Americans who have the same number of votes as all of us in this room do not understand that. Okay, a lack of tariffs increases standards of living worldwide, and we should seek to go in that direction, not the direction that Trump wants to take us. One minor point: minimum wages. Mises is apparently against minimum wages. Minimum wages can increase unemployment. There's no doubt about that. But in the long run, it's helpful because it moves income from upper levels to medium and lower levels to lower levels of people who have a much higher propensity to spend. Therefore, setting minimum wages will often increase economic activity in the long run, even though it may have some negative short-term effects. And as I said earlier, this was going to be my conclusion, but I started with that, and that is that our system has created the greatest amount of innovation and worldwide wealth of any system that we've ever had in history. It's created the highest standards of living, even in countries and areas and among people that aren't the greatest beneficiaries directly of the free market system. And we should go in this direction, but we should have reasonable regulations on the way. Thank you.
All right, Joe Kopsik, you're online. Go ahead. Joe, you're on.
Yeah. First off, good to see everyone. Happy New Year. I'm not gonna fight Justin as often as I do on Facebook. Even though I'm in the Green Party now, I'm in the Green Party because I think it would be a better vehicle towards achieving real libertarianism, which is actual liberty, social libertarianism, than the Libertarian Party would be. I'll get to that in a sec. So Charlie made a few references to what life would be like under Mises or under libertarianism. And I guarantee you, we would have so much a greater degree of freedom under Mises or libertarianism than we have now that it wouldn't really feel like we are underneath anyone. So we don't really have to worry about that. Also, Charlie complained about companies not lasting very long. I'm more worried about companies lasting too long. I'm worried about corporations having too much power, which they get most of their power and privilege and titles and protections from the state. I'm worried that corporations, which the root of which is the word body, I'm worried that corporations are acting too much like people and that they're going to live longer than people. It's good when companies last only a short amount of time, especially if they're in an industry that's just become obsolete. And the government now, under this system, comes in and protects companies and industries that shouldn't exist because technology is evolving. So I'm not worried about companies lasting too short. Now, I'll get to unemployment, which is a really problem in a minute. So about Mises in particular, I agree with the tariffs are a bad idea. I haven't read what Mises said in particular about the League of Nations, international law stuff. I think international law is a good idea. I'd like to know more and read more about Mises' definition of the state. I'm not a fan of the one world government idea. And if Justin, if you could mention what you were mentioning a chapter 1, and I think it was Human Action. If you could clarify when you speak again which book you were quoting from, where you mentioned international law, that'd be great because I'd like to see Mises' actual words on that. The next thing I have to say is I object to the use, just by anyone and everyone all the time, I object to the use of the term free market capitalism. I don't see free markets and capitalism as the same thing. What I would say is capitalism is an economic system where there are protections in favor of managers and owners and private property owners, people who own machines, factories, and farms and businesses, where there's specific interventions to help them. And they don't need help. They're already rich. They have property. Free markets, on the other hand, if we had total free markets, we would be able to choose who governs us, which means there would be no compulsory monopoly state that applies to everyone within a given territory. There have been people like Robert Murphy and Roderick Long who have written on the topic of private law, which is something that Eric Mao briefly touched on tonight. It's a really interesting idea. Private courts, now that might sound like a bad idea, but it doesn't mean that you would be forced to abide by, you wouldn't be forced to participate in someone's courts or legal systems. What's happening now, and Roderick Long talked about this, what could happen is that any two people who have a dispute with each other could submit their dispute to basically a private arbitrator, which we already have now. And it doesn't have to be a licensed arbitrator like a lawyer, someone is licensed by the state or the bar association or whatever. It could be anyone who is truly neutral and independent and has no vested interest in resolving the dispute, except that this dispute be resolved. So, you could decide who orders a pizza. You could decide what kind of pizza to get just by asking a third person what they think. Like, we're fighting too much. You resolve this for us. That's a private court in the broadest definition. So private courts don't have to involve violence. They don't even have to involve private property, really. And I'm glad you mentioned Karl Menger, Justin, one of Mises' influences. And if you read his work, he talks about Menger talks.
Joe, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Your time is up on the rebuttal, but we do appreciate your rebuttal.
All right,
Sure.
who's next? All right, Jake, go ahead.
Oh, we got an online.
Jake, go ahead. Jake, you got
Hi.
Jake.
Okay. I got bad news. Capitalism is here to stay, for better or for worse. People have been trying to replace it for decades. It's not going anywhere. I'm in agreement with Ernie that it's helped us produce a lot of wealth in this country. There are problems with it. It's not perfect. It needs to be better regulated. They need to allow for union organizing. They need to allow for more consumer protections, environmental protections, and so forth. I don't believe in the kind of deregulation that Trump is about. It could be a disaster. The other thing I wanted to say is that, oh yeah, we were talking about the war in Ukraine. Yeah, that's a disaster, and I support the Ukrainians that way. I have no sympathy at all for Putin. I know it's been hotly debated on the left. The whole argument is that Putin went into Ukraine in order to keep Ukraine from joining NATO. I think he's looking at it the other way around. I think he's looking at it the wrong way around. Ukraine is much more likely to join NATO because of Putin's invasion. Ukraine is a sovereign country. It's not, the Soviet Union no longer exists. Ukraine is a sovereign country, and Putin doesn't belong there. He needs to leave. He needs to give up his dream of taking over Ukraine. I suppose he wants to go in there to exploit the resources, but there may be other reasons. They've got Ukraine was always the breadbasket of that part of the world, and also there's a tremendous amount of uranium underground in the mountainous areas of Ukraine, and I believe that that's probably why Putin wants to go in there, though there may be other reasons. Anyway, thank you for your talk.
Okay, who's
Thank you very
next?
much. Mr. Barry Wicker is up next.
All right.
Whoops.
Good evening, the few people that are left here. How are you? My name's Barry Wicker. I'm running for congressman in the 5th District of Illinois. So I run under a banner of Wicker for congressman. I much enjoyed the speech you made tonight because the power of education is very important to me. I feel I'm very educated, but then when I listen to more people, I see how little I know and how much it impoverishes me. It emboldens me when I learn more, like a few things that I learned tonight. A few words that I picked from Jason is his name? Justin was education, and another big one was cooperation. And cooperation with the rest of the world's and governments and leaders is a very, very important factor in life. If we can cooperate, we might learn and improve the world in the directions we walk. And if we don't cooperate, the world is doomed. And that is the most important thing of everything, is the earth that we all walk under. We're all under the same umbrella, no matter who we are or what we do or look like or philosophies. I've spent many years in the international markets, 10 years downtown, biggest markets in the world. I went through banking, millions and billions of dollars each day. I did this for 10 years, and I never was out of balance one day out of 10 years. I know how to run money, and I see it's poorly done in these big cities in the United States. I'm here, so I can't speak of other countries, but I was in the midst of the manipulation of banking and currencies in the United States. I should say in the other countries too, because I ran banks in all the countries, Switzerland, Korea, South America, Germany, Switzerland, Asian countries. I won't get into that too much other than I know right from wrong. I know what to do if I have to do it. I would write policies, but then again, the one man or one entity in the world, impossible to create solving problems. So gathering the wise minds, as many as you can, like Chris right here, this gentleman, I don't know all your names, but I can see and feel the wisdom out of your minds. So I would gather the group. And Tim, you can see people who are flimsy. You can feel flimsy people. We all can. That's why you jump up out of your seat and get all excited, because what you feel. Well, you take these good people and then create policies out of them. So I won't talk much more, because what I just said is fine. What I do know and what I can do and the things I know, I won't talk to, because we could talk all night about that, right and wrong. What we think is what will solve things. But again, education, and what I learned tonight, the beautiful word that you brought out of what you were saying was cooperation. Beautiful word. Not that I don't know the word. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. I thank you very much. Again, I say Wicker for congressman. If I don't make congressman, I can't help. I've been molded for this position my whole life. Trust me. I've learned and been with a lot of different type of people. Every person under the sun I've been with, whether I knew it or not, but I know it now. I know it now. I've been pulled out of the markets I've been in, and I'm open and free. And all of a sudden, this dropped in my lap. I didn't plan this. So if it happens, it'll be a beautiful thing. And if it doesn't, I'll just go on in my life. Yeah, thank you very much.
Adam, and then I'm gonna close it out.
Okay, Adam.
Running it, sir?
Fifth district?
No, close it out.
All right.
Celia Ramirez district.
No, that's
Quigley and.
So you're right.
All right, some of my super fans have left already. My name's Adam Balling. I haven't been here in a while, but it's nice to see Ellen Corley hasn't changed. But at least she's left the room. This place only has 4 weeks to go, so I'm just going to go on record not shutting down an alcoholic debutante in her 60s who goes off on tirades on a regular basis has been a very big disservice to this organization. And if it's ending next month, her behavior is part of the reason you don't get a lot of new butts in seats in this room. I'm just going to say it on camera. It's a damn shame. Now, 7.5 decades is a good run, but this place is going under either. So I'm not going to take a lot of crocodile tears about, well, what do you mean if an organization is going to cease to exist? Isn't that an indictment of capitalism? Isn't this place about 4 weeks away from no longer existing? Is that an indictment of the College of Complexes? I'd like to think we could be a little more generous of spirit in our approach to how things are organized. Now, when it comes to speaking about Austrian economics, our childish debutante who left already didn't have the sense God gave a dog to Google the quote herself instead of going off on her little miniature speeches and interrogation sessions with Justin tonight. She might have learned something if she had. And if she'd allegedly learned something after all these decades hanging around her stepfather and the Manhattan Institute, she doesn't really act like she remembers much. If she's read all of these books, she doesn't really know any of the details. Hayek, the main student, talked about how monopolies happen in his famous book that came out in the 1940s, The Road to Serfdom. 2 countries had a big problem with monopolies in the heyday of capitalism. Great Britain wasn't one of them. Great Britain had a lot of competitive smaller firms that came and went. The United States had a problem with monopolies,
as did the German Empire. Why? He surmised or argued because the United States had the huge tariff wall that was there back in the 19th century. And into the Great Depression era until World War II and the Bretton Woods system, after that book was published, sort of reoriented all of our thinking. With now Trump as the, backlash against 80 years of global capital. And then on the other side of things, Germany had state-supported industry under the Kaiserreich. And another thing he said was, we saw during World War I in Central Europe as well as in Western Europe, the idea that these supposedly conservative, supposedly pro-capitalist or pro-establishment empires and monarchies were taking more and more state control of the economy. But don't worry, it's not going to be socialist. It's just going to be us running the World War I effort with, a level of debt that destroyed their currencies and a level of state control that destroyed their economic dynamism. I believe this book was published before the Great Depression.
Yes, it was. This book was Liberalism was written for.
They're talking behind me. I'm sorry. I thought someone was interjecting. They were talking about meatloaf. I thought someone was talking to Justin about meatloaf. If you'll indulge me with 15 extra seconds for the meatloaf turkey surprise that snuck up behind me. Hayek did have a great deal to teach there, and I think that you could look at both of them as refugees from fascist Europe, Hayek and Mises, that they wouldn't exactly be chief defenders, but this is a calumny that Ms. Corley has repeated time and again, and she doesn't get more interesting for saying it. And if you can see this shirt, this is Ben Franklin on my shirt. You talk about, capitalism and slavery, Charlie. Ben Franklin was born at a time in the colonial American period when slavery was enslavement, if you prefer to call it that, was legal and widespread. In a printing shop as a boy, his family did have at least, I think, one enslaved person when he was growing up. He came against this later, and by the end of his life, he had founded or co-founded the abolitionist movement in the United States. The idea that this is unfrozen and unchanging, is this some gamesmanship? That people think this intellectual gotcha, like, but you could sell yourself into slavery. Gotcha there. Well, no, Ben Franklin figured that out. Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek must really be pro-fascist. Hayek fled to London with the assistance of the London School of Economics and the left-wing faculty there. Mises had already gone to Switzerland before the Anschluss and then fled to America with the help of the Rockefeller Foundation exfiltrating European intellectuals from Axis territory. I mean, this is the level of serious thought at the playground for people who think. Also, Ludwig von Mises hated Ayn Rand. Bettina Greaves reported this. She said that Rand came out of the room crying because he was big-timing her, German Jew versus Russian Jew. And he thought she was a stupid little Jewish girl, was what allegedly she'd said, that Rand came out of the room crying, saying, he called me a stupid little Jewish girl. And they asked him to apologize. And he said, I won't. She is a stupid little Jewish girl. And he, being Jewish himself, was not a big fan. He thought she was peanuts as an intellectual compared to a titan like him, or his student who won a Nobel Prize later on, or his other student who at least founded this wacky think tank in Alabama. Hayek was his Privat seminar. He wasn't even a student in class, the private seminar in Vienna. And the other one, Rothbard, was at the diner when Mises was here teaching at NYU. Hey, I went past my time, even with Turkey Surprise. Thank you, and I'll see you all on the flip side if I don't get thrown out in the final 4 weeks.
All right, my name is Chris Laurent, and I'm going to close out the rebuttals for this evening. I think we're going to close out the session. Thank you once again to Justin. Thank you for all our rebuttals and all of our discussive questions. I do think that it's a little irresponsible to come up here, make your rebuttal, and hit the door once you said your piece. I think if you're going to rebut, you need to sit there and at least pay some mind and attention to the others, other thoughts that need to be shared. I am unapologetically a member of the Mises caucus, and I know that rubs some people the wrong way, but it's like I was asking Russ earlier. If you infiltrate people that bring this true intent of Mises back into that caucus, you can restore the original concept of the organization. And that's what I intend to do. Now, a lot of the discussion tonight was also in regards to regulation or mandates or control, which in my opinion are the three most dangerous words any person in government or even close to government can utter. I'm a non-interventionist. What happened in Venezuela, I don't approve of. So in case anyone wants to sit there and question me, I think that we as a country has just as much right to go into Venezuela and do what we did as I have to go into your bedroom and tell you how to live, how to sleep, how to treat your spouse or your children. That's the same line in my opinion. And I think that that's one thing we can all agree on here. As far as the minimum wage, I know that this is not going to win any brownie points with Charlie, and I'm not picking on you. I think the minimum wage should be zero. It should not be a regulatory body. I think the conversation between employer and employee should be strong enough to where they value one another's existence and they'll reward each other in kind. I'll pay so much wage to some person whose work I approve of, and they'll continue to work for me because of how well I treat them. That should be what the employer-employee relationship is founded upon. Not because some government body decides you need to pay that person $15 an hour, whether you can afford it or not, or whether they're worth it or not. Because I can assure you, there's some people that aren't worth $15 an hour. So that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out once again. Thank you once again, Justin. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Charlie, for all the hard work you guys do. Hopefully we can keep this going. I know it sounds like Adam's looking to put it to bed, but I'd like to see this go on because I value my time here.
Bring the magic back. And I will...
Hey, we're bringing it back right now.
Okay, Justin, you got the final rebuttal.
So, Joe, I don't have the. If you Google or you go to if you Google Liberalism Mises PDF, you'll find the PDF. And then if you open the PDF to the chapter, the table of contents, you'll see the table of contents. It's under Liberal Foreign Policy, League of Nations. You'll find that quote about one world government. Unfortunately, I left my laptop at the table, so I can't read it to you. But that is where it's at. I want to talk about the college. I second a lot of the things Adam said. It's been fun. It's a great institution. The format's fun. It does stir inquiry and thinking and stuff like that. So thanks, Tim and Charlie, for all you've done over the years to keep this thing going. Perhaps I'll see some of you guys next week. I don't know. But go read Liberalism by Mises. It's great. It's a great read. One of the things I tried doing is because he wrote stuff later than this book. So when I found like a topic, like what did he think about democracy? Not only did I read what he wrote in Liberalism, I checked with Human Action, and he still he doesn't really change too much on some of these issues that I thought he would. So he stayed pretty static on some of these ideas. I don't know if he did on all of them. But one of the things he did lament was the change of the word, what liberal meant, especially in the American sense, over time. That's why the book, when it was first published in English, didn't even use the title liberalism, because the liberalism he's describing in that book no longer exists in the United States. So I think please read it. It's very interesting. It's only like 200 pages. Each chapter is, a few pages long, so you can read it, piecemeal, comfortably over a few days, I'm sure. So certainly check it out. And what are some others? Mises was big into gold, so he certainly would not like the Federal Reserve and all that sort of stuff. What else? What are some other stuff I didn't touch on? I didn't touch on the socialist calculation problem because it kind of warrants its own discussion, but kind of similar to how we just discussed minimum wage. Basically, interventions, which socialism requires, messes up the pricing mechanics, and you can't tell, you can't figure out, what's the real price. So in a free system, the prices will tell us things like quantity and supply and that sort of stuff. But socialism blurs that sort of stuff because of all the interventions. I guess that's it. It was nice to speak several times here. Hopefully I can speak at the future incarnation of whatever happens. But it's been great, Charlie and Tim. Thank you so much. I've always had a blast coming here. And I was kind of like, I got a little cough and kind of on medication. So if I've seemed a little loopy, that's why. Plus I had 3 beers as well. But thanks.
Dismiss us, please.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, Tim, did you collect 2